Saliba
Oh yeah, I
said
saw
something,
that.
and then Pepe was like, "This is why you just got to keep your mouth shut." And then Saliba replied to Pepe like, "I'm just supporting my brother who was shelved like I am being." So obviously there are problems at Arsenal that are
They're talking
deeper
about
than
loaning Saliba out, and that's not the right move right now.
no.
like at
Just
all.
play him. You're playing David Luiz over him,
Yeah, what's it gonna hurt,
dude.
in the long run?
Exactly. You're
Are you
already
gonna lose again.
Yeah, you're like they've beaten Fulham and West Ham. They beat West Ham 2-1. They beat Sheffield. Every other team they beat United, and then they haven't won in 5 games. Not a single win, and they only have 1 point in 5 games. That is atrocious. Granted, they've played Villa, Leeds, Wolves, Spurs, and Burnley, but you should be beating Wolves if you're Arsenal. You should be beating Burnley. You should be beating Leeds, and you should be beating Villa.
You know what? I don't even know that we should be pretending that Arsenal should be doing better, though. Their team sucks. Everybody on their team's bad. I mean, Aubameyang, he's in his twilight years. Lacazette, he was okay in France. Pepe had one good season in France. It's not like they have like a stellar squad, and it's so shocking that they're losing. You've got shit players with a first-year manager. This is exactly what you should expect. I mean, this isn't the Arsenal that plays top 4 for 10 years in the past 10 years.
I agree with you, but like still, man, like.
Oh no, yeah, I agree. Like, I mean, there's no excuse, but this is where they're at, and it's completely.
Like, if you look at their squad, they have a decent amount of people in there. Like, okay, there's Bellerin. Like, okay, before his ACL injury, he was probably the fastest player in the Premier League. Now he definitely has lost speed, but he's still fairly solid. Kieran Tierney, at the end of last season, I argued he was probably the best.
At least that potential.
Yeah.
He's still young too.
Yeah. Then they have Saliba, who they haven't played. Socrates, who I think is on loan or sold. He hasn't played a single game. I don't think.
He at least has a seat. I mean, that's one of their center backs that at least has some kind of. He's been to a Champions League final. Was he with? No, that was. They were still playing Subotic.
Then they have Magalhaes and Rob Holding. Like, I don't rate Rob Holding. I don't think if you want to be a contender for in a title-winning team, you have Rob Holding in there.
Not in a 2 center back system, no.
No.
And they have the personnel to play 3 center backs, but for some odd reason he wants Tierney to play left center back. I mean, he plays center back for Scotland, but that's because they don't have anything else. Like, he's 5'10" and fast as shit. Don't waste that on the back line.
Yeah. And then listen, this is 4 or 5 of their midfielders. Saka, Ceballos, Ozil, Maitland-Niles, and Partey. Like, those 5 are fairly solid, and I'd say that Maitland-Niles isn't a midfielder.
That'd be fine.
Yeah.
Would you say Maitland-Niles is or isn't?
Not. I would say he's like if you're gonna play him as a midfielder, he'd have to be like a wing back, like with a 3-back. So basically, what Arsenal are doing now, except instead of putting Bellerin in, you put Maitland-Niles.
Yeah.
And then their strikers, they have Lacazette, Willian, Aubameyang, Pepe, Reece Nelson, and Nketiah, and Gabriel Martinelli. Like, with that forward line, you should have more than 10 goals. I don't care. Like, you should. That is, like, this is what I was saying yesterday. Like, Arteta is a great coach, quite clearly, because City had, I think, one of the best defensive records when he was there. And then he left, and City had the worst defensive record. And I think they have a pretty bad one still. And I think
they just drew West Brom.
So, and before this season started, I think since Arteta left City, Arsenal had more points than them. Obviously now it's not the case, and then if you look at the way Arteta is handling the Guendouzi situation, I understand you have to discipline him because he chokeslammed Mopai, and I guess he apparently talked shit to Arteta as well. So I mean, you can't have that. And then, but this whole thing with Saliba saying that he's been, like, fucked out, and then the same with Ozil. Like, you're not playing your player who's on the highest wages. Now, we've already talked that that's probably not Arteta that's saying that, because I don't think it is. I think that's from someone higher up, but, like...
Yeah, but the board doesn't need to be holding their dick wondering what's going on when they're not playing O2.
Yeah. It's just...
Debatably, the only reason that they've made any higher stints on the table in the past 4 or 5 years is O2.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Oh yeah.
I mean, if it's a mystery to them, they can fuck themselves. I mean, that's kind of crazy that he's not still in the team for whatever reason.
But yeah, so I think Arsenal, unless they are in deep shit, and I don't see it changing with Arteta. I don't. Because let's see their next upcoming fixtures is Southampton,
Yep.
Everton, Chelsea, Brighton, and West Brom.
They could beat Everton. Everton's leaky, and I feel like they're going to go into that game kind of confident.
See, but
Southampton's going to beat them for sure. Southampton's going to score 2 or 3 on them. That's what I like about Southampton too. Is they don't care who you are; they're coming to play.
yeah, Everton actually have had a pretty shit run too. They just played Chelsea. They've Leicester, Arsenal, Sheffield City, and then West Ham.
Holgate and Godfrey were playing fullbacks for them last game. They're center backs.
Dude.
I understand they're capable of playing fullback, but they're center backs.
I'd say that Godfrey is, you should not be playing him at fullback, and Holgate I think can play right back if you were desperate. But
Yeah.
what's wrong with Coleman and?
I know Coleman's just older, but they also have that
John Joe
Kenny and Danny Cuckoo do the left backs. I don't know what the fuck.
Yeah, I don't see in the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think Arsenal will maybe get 4 points. Maybe.
That's being kind.
Yeah, it really is. I'm giving him a win against West Brom, but West Brom just
West Brom's going to be
drew with they've drawn with Chelsea, they've drawn with City just today, and they probably should have drawn with United. So that's going to be a hard game too.
I think West Brom and Fulham are going to be challenging teams a little bit more throughout this break.
Yeah, I legit that Brighton game that Arsenal have to play. If they lose that, they'll be in relegation.
They'll lose that though. Welbeck coming back to Arsenal, he's going to score a goal just to shit on him. And,
I think you're right.
Revenge.
I really think you're right, man. Like if West Brom can get a couple more points, let's see their next few fixtures.
Yeah, I mean, even in each team's past 3 games, they're competing though.
They've got Villa, Liverpool, Leeds, Arsenal, Wolves.
West Brom.
Yeah, so that's a fairly
Wolves, Villa, and Leeds though they've lost games that they shouldn't have this year.
That's true.
So, granted, they've also won games they shouldn't have, but it's a toss-up with these teams right now.
Think about how boring that West Brom Arsenal game is going to be.
Both
of them just sit back.
Unless you really want to watch Arsenal lose, that's the only way you're going to have a good time. Then it's going to be a boring game. But I do think West Brom pulls out 1-0 off a fluke, off a set piece, off a penalty. It's going to be something. I mean, Arsenal, they've shot themselves in the foot as many times as they've just played shit football. I mean, like dumb decisions as opposed to just being beat on the field.
Yeah, it's the same. You could argue the same thing with every team because definitely when it comes to United,
they're not doing it as much.
The reason why they concede is that it's a calamity of errors in a row. That's what Liverpool having Van Dijk is like such a big deal because if you have one player mess up, you know that if it gets to Van Dijk, he's not going to mess up. And then this season, he actually started to mess up, and that's how Leeds almost beat them. And how Villa just tore him apart. Because they knew, if I just go down the left side here towards Trent Alexander-Arnold, I know he's not going to cover. And if we keep Ollie Watkins up in the middle taking care of Van Dijk, then Grealish is in scot-free every single time. So, but it's just watching Arsenal, man. Like, there's the only person who shows any desire is Ceballos, and he's on loan.
Oh,
that's
he
fairly
is
sad.
So he's on a 2-year loan?
No, I think they loaned him for last season, and then I don't think they had enough money to buy him and Partey. So I think they loaned him, and then they bought Partey.
And Ceballos is from Real, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I'm sure Real are going to do the same thing that they did. If Arsenal are going to buy Ceballos, they're going to do the same thing that they did with Reguilon, where they're going to pay. But you give us $30 million, but we get a $30 million buyback because Real are already talking about taking him back because Ferland Mendy isn't doing it over there in Madrid.
Nobody's really doing it over in Madrid right now.
It's very true. I think, and then Villa have really dropped off in the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, and there's no really like explicit reason why. I feel like they've either just got unlucky or they're not clicking on the field how they were in the first few games.
I think it's a little bit of both.
Not having Cash these next few games are going to hurt as well.
And I think was McGinn out? I have him on my team, but I can't remember. I think he was injured for the games that they lost.
That would make sense. He's one of the better box-to-box midfielders in the league. He's definitely the reason Grealish can do his thing.
Yeah. But I think this Liverpool Spurs game tomorrow is going to be a big decider.
I think Spurs are going to win.
I think
it'll either be close or a blowout. I know that's like a broad thing to say, but I can't see it being a back and forth game.
With Son attacking Alexander-Arnold the whole game.
Yeah.
Dude.
Well, not only that, but he's been subbing Nico in like every, after the 70-minute mark for the past few games. He's been playing to young people. Dude, Curtis Jones has looked a lot better than I thought he would.
He's a solid player.
Yeah, I didn't think he was. His first few games, he looked timid. He didn't look like he'd make it in the Prem, but he's
I thought he was more of a cam, but the more I watch him, the more I'm like, okay, this guy's probably
back.
Yeah. He doesn't have the same. He doesn't have the same energy as Jordan Henderson. You know what I mean? Like Jordan Henderson will go box to box, box to box, and maybe Curtis Jones does. But every time I've watched him, he seems to just kind of like glide around and like
he gets the ball less. I think he's a rolling dog. He just finds space.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
because who'd they play last week? I watched that game. They tied, right?
Oh, against Fulham.
Fulham. Okay, so when he was playing Fulham, he was the midfielder man. Like they were looking for him to deliver the ball.
Yeah. The
entire game, and he's like 20 years old.
Liverpool haven't looked great. No one has looked great consistently. Not a single, other than Tottenham, I'd say.
They're the closest, but even then.
But even then, yeah. Like Leicester beat Man City 5-0, but then they lose to who did we say a minute ago? Was it Fulham?
Yes.
No.
Yeah, it was. It was 2-1 Fulham 3 weeks ago.
But then they go and lose to Fulham, and then like Liverpool,
I understand like 5-0 compared to a Fulham, defeat.
Yeah.
But I'm for real. I've been watching these games. Fulham and West Brom, like they're not just like It's not closer games. So, like their gameplay is a lot better too. They picked up with the pace.
That West Brom Chelsea game. I mean, that was an early indication that West Brom aren't going to be a team that you can just roll over.
Yeah.
I think really the only team that's going to be a rollover team this year is Sheffield, because they have nothing going forward, and that was kind of their problem last year as well. Most of their wins last year were sneaky like 1-0 wins or 2-1 wins.
Yeah,
but
see with Leeds, Fulham, and West Brom though, and those three teams brought in the most players out of any other teams in the league, aside from like Chelsea, who just had a dumb number of players coming in. But
which is the way Chelsea spent the GDP of a small nation,
right? Just way too much fucking money.
Yeah, and they're only 2 points ahead of a Norwegian PE teacher who has 2 games in hand.
Well, you're gonna find this issue whenever you do bring in 4 or 5 players to start in one season, though, is where you put them in the formation that the system you're trying to run, and that's the same thing that West Brom, Fulham, and Leeds are running into. Like Rafinha wasn't in that team, the Leeds team last year. Leeds had Ben White from Brighton last year in defense, and now they brought in that coach dude to play. But I mean, you're resetting an entire team to compete in a league that's harder than the one you just came from.
I'm pretty sure Norwich was like the first promoted team in like a long time that didn't add a lot of players to their team. Because remember 2 years ago when Fulham got promoted, they bought like
Schürrle. Who was the other guy? They brought in Aarons from Newcastle.
Yeah. They brought in a ton of people.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I think Scott Parker, though, he's a solid manager.
But the thing is, these teams brought in good players, though. They didn't bring in like other championship players.
Yeah, they brought in Lookman.
Yeah,
what?
Bro, what a buy! And not only that, Tete going into Fulham from Olympique Lyon,
and they loaned in Ruben Loftus-Cheek, which
they brought in that Areola. I mean, they stocked up. They have a good team. All 3 teams have brought in decent players to the Premier League.
Yeah.
And I think it's a matter of, 13 games in, that's about time to find your footing, and they
Yeah.
have been.
Sean Dyche